Welcome back. I've got another cognitive bias for you today. Today I want to talk about the appeal to novelty. This is why new doesn't always mean better. Now we know that, we intuitively understand that just because something is newer is not better, but we do fall in the trap of operating and thinking and making decisions as if new is better a lot. And this can happen when we're trying to solve those literal and metaphorical treasures, trying to solve problems in our workplace, in our lives, in our homes, other things. And of course, it can also impact our checkbook when we keep driving to get that new thing because we think the newer one's going to be better. There's a whole nother phenomenon that's going on there. So let's talk through a series of lessons that can be helpful for us as we think about this appeal to novelty and how we can avoid its trap as we're trying to do this work of clearer thinking and problem solving, decision making, treasure hunting, and so forth. So the first one is the shiny bias. We are drawn to the new just because it feels exciting, not because it's effective. So new is shinier, it's newer, it's packaged well, and we can get tripped up by that. We can get tricked into assuming somehow that indicates better. But we want to try to repurpose our thinking, especially when we're trying to solve problems or discover things, is we're looking for most effective, not newer. And new does not equal more effective necessarily. Now, it does sometimes, it can sometimes, but sometimes it may have more features, something new, and you're going to use it, but it doesn't actually create a better end product in the way that you need it right now. And so that's a really valuable thing to keep in mind. The second lesson would be just the marketing the marketing trap. Brands are exploiting this all the time by selling upgrades to add just a little bit value, but they often cost more, sometimes a lot more, and they don't make a difference. Even the camera that I'm using right now to record this, maybe there's another camera out that can produce just a little bit better quality in some way. It has some 4 or 5 extra features, but do I really use those features? Are they necessary for this specific task? Maybe not. Probably not. And in fact, I know that there are YouTubers who are using really inexpensive kind of cameras and equipment, but it's doing good, decent quality. And if they were to spend an extra $2,000 on equipment, it would not necessarily increase the experience for the viewer or increase the number of subscribers or watchers or anything like that. Well, that's the same thing is true when we're trying to solve problems. The kind of equipment and the tools and things that we are using, new isn't better. Be aware, yes, we all know it, that is a marketing strategy, and they're going to be kicking out those new versions and trying to drive you to the new one, and eventually you'll probably have to upgrade because one's not being supported anymore, but you don't have to upgrade nearly as fast as they want you to. The third one is evaluate function. So ask, does this tool, or it could be a rule or a practice or an idea. It doesn't have to just be some kind of tool or technology. Whatever's being presented to you as the new way, does it actually solve the problem better than the old one? I know it's a simple question, but if you ask that question really honestly and dig in, it can get you past sort of the lure of the shiny new object into what's going to be most valuable, most useful. And that leads to this next one. Lesson 4 is compare evidence. So don't just take new at face value. Look for data or experiences that prove improvement. So let's say that something does offer something better than the other. You want to dive into the data and experiences from other people. Okay, so maybe in some way it offers something better, but is that better more useful for your task that you're trying to accomplish? So it has to be specific to your situation. I found actually, even over time, as someone who uses a lot of technologies and different technologies, that I've gotten new technologies that actually have more features and they are on paper better, but in practice, it's harder for me to accomplish the tasks that I want. And that's something for us to keep in mind. And then I would say also just keep in mind that older strategies sometimes exist because they've been tested over time by multiple people and they've been shown to be effective. Now, I'm not a fan for just embracing something because it's old, but I do think that there's wisdom in having the humility to recognize that a tried and tested practice maybe has existed for a while for a reason. and to at least be willing to learn and understand why it's been used in the past. Now, in the process of asking that why and trying to figure out why that idea, that strategy, that practice, that tool has been used for so long in the past, you may discover that it was because it was designed for a different problem, but people just kept using it even when the problem shifted. And so maybe that's a reason to move to the newer thing. But in other cases, you may find that it was it was it was a lot of deep thinking and experimentation over time, and people had a lot of wisdom to come up with that strategy or that practice. So we should have a measure of humility to be willing to not just let go of those practices too quickly. I work in an organization where sometimes we come up with new ideas, and I go to our archivist and I will ask him for, and I've asked him for any history about it, and I've discovered that that wasn't a new idea. It actually been tried 3 times over the last 100 years, and in different times, and had different successes or failures, and I can learn from those. So before I just jump to my new strategy or approach, I can go back and look at the past practices, failed and successes. That can be very useful. There you go. That appeal to novelty can be strong. It can be powerful. Most of us like to have that new thing sometimes, or we're drawn to the new idea, the new strategy, the new practice, because we assume that new means new and improved, new and better. But is it better for our situation? Is it going to help us achieve our goals more effectively? And does it have some downsides that maybe that the older practice didn't? All that is really good to figure out. So I hope you find this useful. I look forward to your comments.